So, welcome back to Round Rant, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Rob Damiani, who is the lead singer of the band Don Broco. Rob, so ever
Hello.
since I saw you at Mad Cool, which was 2 summers ago now, it seems like quite a lifetime. We've been looking to get this done, so I'm delighted to finally have the opportunity to chat to you. But before we get into the nitty gritty, how is all with you and your life at the moment?
Yeah, good. Thanks. It's been crazy busy. A busy few years. A very busy year this year. We just got back from our US headline run, and we've had about we've got 2 weeks now before we get going on our next UK jaunt. And it's always you always think you got all this time, and then you sort of by the time you're back and you've tried to sort of wind down from the tour before and done all the sort of normal home things that you have to do, it's suddenly like, how is
Yeah.
this how is this next tour already happening? So yeah, frantically rushing around at the minute because this next one starts in a week, and there's just still so much to get ready for that. But yeah, apart from that, not too bad.
Good, good. Well, it's always the case. Like you get your big America tour done, then you're back to the home comforts, and then you're doing your home tour. And hopefully, most people tend to do Australia in the new year, but hopefully, maybe a few months to decompress before the festival comes up. But
Yeah, no, we've actually got after this we are done for a while. So we did Australia at the start of this year. So this will be like the final thing of this album cycle really, and we've been going since just after the pandemic. So pretty non-stop. So this will be the final thing, then we can sort of get home, grab a couple of weeks chill before we over Christmas, and then we start the next record. So, I mean, I say chill, it probably, it will still be mad just trying to, it'll be the next
yeah,
deadline of the next album that we do, but at least we'll be at home and having, to sleep in our own beds and stuff, which we're looking forward to.
yeah,
I'm just going to turn, as I mentioned, I can work it out on the laptop, so I'm going to turn my phone off because I'm getting WhatsApps come through. I'm just going to put it on I don't know if you can hear the
I could hear
vibration.
that one.
Yeah, let me just try and get me on Do Not Disturb. There we go.
Happy days.
And I've got a creaky chair here. I've just noticed. Can you hear that, or is that
You're
okay?
good. You're good.
Okay.
And yeah, so as you were saying, like the last year or so has been exceptionally busy for you guys, but I always like going back to like the day one of artists and like what got them inspired. I always say like I attempted to be in a band, it didn't work out. I don't sound like a David Brent sob story here, but like I always remember what like gravitated towards making me like pick up guitar, and that was seeing Blink 182 on Kerrang in like 2002 for the first time, and that led me to learn the
Mm.
guitar and stuff like that. And I know in like other interviews you've talked about like you used to be in a choir when you were younger, but like was it a specific song? Was it someone within the family, a friend? Like what got you into music at like the very first stage?
Yeah, I guess my first like memory of like sort of I just loving a song or loving an album would have been like I'm actually in my parents' house now. I'm staying there. They live just down the road from where we practice, so they still live in the same house. So it's on this kitchen floor, just dance like basically trying to break dance to Michael Jackson with my brothers. So yeah, my parents they did listen to a fair amount of music, but not like a huge wide array of genres and artists, but probably just because we loved Michael Jackson, they just played Michael Jackson. So yeah, Thriller, Bad, Dangerous, probably those three records, especially, we just rinse non-stop. And my brother was called Michael, so he got to be Michael Jackson, and I got to be Michael Jackson's fictional brother, Robert
Yeah.
Jackson, who doesn't exist, but was another member of the Jackson Five. and yeah, we'd know all the words, like we'd come up with dance routines and sort of, just jam out to that, rock out. And I think, you know, Michael Jackson had quite obviously like such an array of styles under his
Mm.
belt, and he had, it was that, just incredible pop music, but he went down quite a rocky route. So I think that, with those albums, especially kind of Bad and Dangerous, that probably inspired me, maybe subliminally, in my first kind of like, guitar music, maybe to a degree. Um, there's that, I think it's a Van Halen solo on one of the songs, I can't remember now. But then that's still kind of, it's just great pop music, great, R&B, incredible vocals. So that would have been my first love, I think, of something where I kind of, chose to listen to, and I, asked my parents to put it on, rather than say, singing in like a school choir, or, doing music at school where you're just kind of told what to do. That was probably my first, memory of having a choice, of thinking, oh, this is what I like,
Yeah.
out of all the things that you could be listening to, that nag your parents to put on the radio, that was what I chose. So yeah, I'd say I've got this other early memory, pretty, I was actually telling the story to my friend the other day. So the first CD I ever got as an actual, CD, that, like, I remember one Christmas getting on Christmas Day, was Oasis, which would have been What's the Story, Morning Glory, and getting my dad to like take it back to the shops because I wanted Spice Girls, and just being not interested. Then fast forward like a couple of months, hearing Wonderwall a load of times, being like, nah, I want the CD. And I remember having this I couldn't even say it was a dream. I'm sure it was just this memory, just, I guess, like this vision of me as, like, a probably 4-year-old, 5-year-old kid, thinking, wow, wouldn't it be awesome to get up in front of my class and play Wonderwall in front of all the other kids? Everyone would love me. I
Mm.
remember having that memory, thinking that would be sick. Like, obviously, and at my school, you kind of, you sang like a hymn, I guess, in at the start of the day sometimes. So that was probably my own experience of singing out loud, but then singing Wonderwall in my room at home, thinking, this is awesome. Wouldn't that be cool? That's probably my first memory of ever feeling like the want to get up in front of people and perform. And then, then fast forward a load of years where I was singing in school choirs. I was in like my school orchestra. I played the cello, played like recorder and all those things you do at school. But yeah, fast forward a load of years, I guess, like, discovering, probably the same sort of time you love Blink. I was into Blink. All those bands when you first like discover rock music, and
Yeah.
it's like, you like Blink 182, Metallica, Rage Against the Machine. You just find out who the biggest bands
Yeah.
are. Forgetting sort of subgenres within music, Chili Peppers, whoever's like accessible, and Iron Maiden, bands like that, and Nirvana, of course, and just picking up the drums, and that was like, I guess, my discovery of like heavy music, and just enjoyed thrashing about on that. And then by accident sort of ended up singing for Don Broco, which was a different very different enterprise back then, just like, a bunch of mates at school. But Simon, Matt, and our old bassist Luke, they'd meet up at break times and after school, and practice with my other friend Doug. And one day I just went to a practice and sort of did some custom percussion and did some backing vocals, and our other mate Doug ended up leaving the band, and I just kind of, just slipped into lead vocals. And that's really kind of what, happened just as a, just a fun school thing to do. And we must have been like probably doing our GCSEs maybe a year before that. And yeah, it was just a fun thing we did at break time, and at the weekends you'd meet up and jam, and eventually, we booked some gigs. But yeah, I guess it was never something that I set out to do where I was like, right, I'm going to be in a band.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing. It's just, you discover that love of music, you do it as a hobby and just something to do, to hang out with your friends.
Yeah.
And it kind of snowballed from there, I guess. Yeah.
And it seems to be the case with most bands, bar the exceptions, that like your teenagers or schoolboy friends, and that was kind of the case with your band. One thing, as I was doing my research or even over the years, is that I always am fascinated with, it's like I had the Bowling for Soup lead singer on about 2 years ago now, and he talked about the origin of their name and your name. It seemed to have taken a few formats, and then there's some untold story. I couldn't find why it's the case, but the band name you have now is based upon some sort of football injury, or is that wrong?
No, that's correct. Yeah. We were struggling for a name for so long. We had a few different iterations and band names, and the one we kind of liked the most, that stuck for a few years, was Club Sex. And that, well, had its own story. We were just on a lads' holiday, and there was this club called Club Sex in Cavos, and we just thought it was just the stupidest, like, most obvious, like, what name can we call a club that's going to get like idiots to come? Club Sex,
Yeah.
cool. So it was just an in joke amongst us, and we really liked that name, and we kind of wanted it. But we started writing songs that were a little more, I guess, emotional in nature, and it just didn't feel right.
No.
Even back then when we weren't taking things that seriously, you can be like, heavy metal band would work, like anything heavy or pumping or, electronic. It kind of feels right. But as soon as you kind of bring, a more sort of emotional guitar, any song within that realm, it just felt, weird. So we want to change the name. And we were going through so many, I think, because we liked Club Sex so much, it was really hard to kind of top that and find something that felt as as almost attention grabbing but original. And there was, basically we had a name, Don Loco, that our I can't remember how we came across it, but like our mates in Bedford, we used to call each other Don. You just go through, for some reason there was just like a year where everyone was like, yeah, you're the Don. And
Yeah.
like, for some reason that was part of our lingo for a while. So we had that. Somehow someone thought of Don Loco, but it just sounded a bit like the translation's Mr. Crazy in Spanish, and that's, again, didn't feel quite right. So we kind of forgot about it. Oh yeah, there was a German rapper who also already had that name when we Google searched it. So yeah, we were kind of at the end of our tether, and the promoter, we had a show booked, and the promoter was like, I need to put something down, just give me a name. And we were playing five-a-side football, and Simon, our guitarist, got slide tackled, broke his wrist. We had to pull out of the show, which we were kind of bummed about. And then he came in one day to work, and just not even as a joke, I wouldn't know why, I sometimes just say things that I think it was a bad joke. I just said, it's Don Broco. And we kind of looked across at each other, and we were like, yeah, maybe that'll do. Like, it kind of, we'd been through so many months of trying to think of it. We were just kind of bored of thinking of a name by then. We wanted to get started, get going, actually do things that bands do, and play shows and book some gigs. So it was really like, we were just sort of completely exhausted of trying to think of a decent name. So yeah, I kind of, sometimes I think back and I'm like, man, I just wish we'd tried a little bit harder, because it's a weird one. Like there are definitely like downsides to it. No one knows how to pronounce it. Is it Don Broco? Is it Don Broco? A lot of people add an N in there, so it's Don Bronco.
I used to be one of the N guys at the start.
One of the N guys, yeah. a lot of Americans are N guys as well, because I think Bronco obviously is like a more widely used word out there. So you get a lot of Broncos and Don Bronco fans in the States. Um, but then the plus side is like it's kind of, there's no other name kind of quite like it. It doesn't give you any preconceptions listening to the band name, which I think that's the problem. A lot of there was like that phase where everyone was like the something,
Yeah.
and immediately it's like, oh, you're an indie band, or um, so many bands. There was, I guess, after Blink as well, there were so many bands with numbers in their name. And then you think, yeah, you just relate, similar sounding names to bands you've heard before. So it's nice, coming in fresh from that perspective. But I kind of wish it was a bit easier for people to say, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Well, like it is what it is. Everyone who I speak to that's in the industry, they always have similar feelings about their name. They're like, "Oh, I
Mm,
wish we came up with this and that." But it seems that most interview questions around names of even some of the biggest bands, they're kind of ashamed of the band name, and
yeah.
now it's just such a generic thing that like you kind of just go to bed at night and accept it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's weird because like even before, say that Mad Cool show, months before, I was like, "Oh, Don Bronco are playing," and it wasn't until my friend was like, "It's Broco, you idiot," and I was like, "Oh, it actually is." Yeah, I've been misquoting the band that I've been trying to get you to come see. So it was a humble learning experience on my behalf. So I'll hold my hand up for that. But with regards to the band Don Broco, not Bronco, it's been now like what is it, 11, 12 years since your first proper album, and you've gone on to release 4 albums. But at the very start, when say Before Priorities was coming out, and before like you went on to do Technology and other releases, like when I look at your band, one of the great things, like looking back at it now, 4 albums on, is the diversity of it. And you've kind of alluded to it, even with the name, where I kind of nearly look at you somewhat of a, there's a little bit of Blink in you, but there's also like that heavy side. So nearly like someone like a Limp Bizkit who can play behind Blue Eyes and have people with their phones out with the flashlight on, and then a song later they could be singing about God knows what. So that
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of that heavy side, that joking side, that in between side, was that something that you were always had in your locker? Because even now, like I could have my be in the car and play some of your music, and I could hear something like a Bruce Willis, which is a bit more lighthearted on the surface anyway, compared to something like a One True Prince that personally I think is quite a deep, meaningful song. But at the early stages, was that always your intention to be a like nearly a hybrid, like sound heavy, but also have the fun natured songs, but then also writing songs that are capable of making people think?
Yeah, I think it was something definitely at the start we never thought about. I don't think, um, probably with, I can definitely say we never thought that hard about it, um, pre-priorities, and probably even on priorities. But I think it was something we kind of realized we were doing naturally, just as, even if you listen back to our like early EPs, there was still that kind of diversity between them. Um, one of our first songs that we were the first, yeah, I guess it was one of the first 2 or 3 songs we wrote, Thug Workout, which is a kind of fan favorite because it's got this, kind of terrible, like low budget video that we filmed, but it kind of became a real kind of launch pad for people getting into our band in the early days.
Yeah,
But like the EP that was on, like the 2 songs that kind of sandwiched it, sounded nothing like that song. And even within that song, it kind of takes a few different routes. And that was we weren't thinking at all back then. We were it was
yeah,
literally just coming out with what made us feel good. And I think because we listen to so much music and we like so many different bands, and we're not like we're not super fans of any one particular genre. We're music fans, we're rock music fans, whether it's, kind of heavy metal, like, the new metal sound that we grew up on, pop punk, like going back, to like 90s grunge and, you know, 80s as well, we listen to everything. So that, I think that was always going to come out in our music, even without us kind of thinking about it too much. And I think just the nature of being like, I find it quite strange when people do expect like artists and acts to sort of do one thing, and there aren't
Yeah.
many big acts that do. Even when you think of say Blink, for example, if you're taking them, they're known for like probably their more upbeat kind of silly, I don't know, like less, kind of their less deepest, like what their biggest hits, I guess, like What's My Age Again, um,
All the small
all
things,
the
stuff
small
like that.
things, yeah. But even on that record, they had like Adam's Song, and they kind of did talk about other, deeper things. And then as their albums have progressed, when they came back with their self-titled, they really kind of went down that route even more and kind
Yeah.
of show the world that they can do both. And I think I guess bands that don't take themselves too seriously, yeah, you either go down that route where you're just that band, but most bands will end up, you get so bored just doing that all the time. I think a band that we all kind of loved that really straddled that well was Foo Fighters, who could like, have some quite like fun music videos and had that sense of like, that sense of kind of exploration and anything goes, and it's kind of crazy and wacky sometimes. But you knew the songs were always like, they were serious musicians and just incredibly well written songs. And while you might have a few lyrics here that kind of like, you're like, oh, that's a bit weird, and that kind of makes you smile. Like you've got those other songs that really kind of hit hard and are way more heartfelt. So I think, yeah, for me, yeah, I think we'll always do both because like that's who we are as people. Um, life isn't always like super serious and depressing all the time, but it certainly is. So you need to write about that now and then and get those feelings out, and it's a really, it's a great way of dealing with shitty things that come up in life, for me anyway,
Mm.
personally. But at the same time, like life can be super fun. So why would you hold yourself back to just being writing those deep songs all the time? Because when you think about like, your day, your week, like you need that. That's the variety of your day. That's the variety you need in your life. So I think as album to album goes, there might be times we lean into a certain side or theme more, but I think it's just within us to sort of mix it up every time.
Yeah. I think it's the right way to do it. And that's kind of where the bands I gravitate towards to are definitely of that ilk where, as you said, say someone like Foo Fighters, where they could have an absolutely ludicrous video as if they're like 10-year-olds in a Montessori, but
Yeah,
then
yeah,
they could be actually singing about something serious, or else their next song could be something
yeah.
quite thought provoking and deep.
I
But
like that contrast as well when you do have something on the, whether it's the music video or even just the music or the melody, something that's like quite fun and it just seems super lighthearted, but then you scratch the surface and it is a little bit deeper. Like I always get a kick out of those songs, as
yeah,
a listener, when you hear something and you understand it on another level once you get into the lyrics. So yeah, we do that occasionally. Sometimes we'll just have a video that doesn't make any sense,
mm,
but is somehow suits the song, and then you almost get three levels of enjoyment. You're like, you're watching a video for the first time, you'll just be taking in these images like, what the hell's going on? That was a trip. Then maybe the second time you'll actually get the song, and then maybe it will take 5 or 6 listens before you actually like digest the lyrics and think, oh, okay, now I completely get the whole picture. So yeah, we always like doing that if we can.
Yeah. I think, what is it? Outcast Hey Ya is like a pretty dark song, but
Yeah,
like when it comes on and in a club setting or at a wedding, everyone's having the absolute best time of their lives.
yeah,
So something like that's probably a good
yeah,
example. And with say with the band itself, now like it seems like every 3 years is kind of where your album releases tend to be thus far anyway. But within those releases, there's different expectations. Like as I said, say when you were playing that show in Mad Cool compared to where you are now, you're nearly a different band just in maybe the expectations you'd have of yourselves, having, had some big shows. You'd had Papa Roach supporting you for a few shows as well. And as you said, heading over to the US as well. But as you progress and get exposed to a lot more, I don't know, perceived success, like how or has that affected your creative process? Because I remember speaking to your man Jared from Bowling for Soup. He said once they released Girl All the Bad Guys Want, that just changed everything because the label pressure was a bit more intense. They wanted singles, stuff like that. So have you found with your success over the last several years slowly growing, has that put more pressure on you as a band, or are you still one of those bands that's just like, you know what we are, as you've just said in your last answer, we'll have a bit of fun, we'll be serious when we need to be? Or are you finding now that the gears start getting motoring, that you're kind of having to adapt to maybe exterior expectations of your band?
yeah. It's definitely. I mean, we definitely noticed that after. I guess the first time we ever had that external pressure from uh, a record label was, I guess, like probably our one of our kind of biggest singles we ever had that kind of took the band up to another level was our song "You Want to Know," that was released like in
Yeah,
between
I know.
album, but in between Priorities and Automatic, and like as that was back in the day where uh, before streams were so dominant, which is even crazy to
Mm,
think that it was that long ago. You could get a single release that would chart in like the UK chart. And it actually, I remember like, it charted in the top 40 and we were there like, listening to the countdown. I think it was on a Sunday back then on Radio 1, being like, this is crazy. And it was the first time, um, first time I guess we'd ever seen what like one song could do, because yeah, only having released Priorities before, that was like our kind of introduction to I guess I wouldn't say the mainstream rock scene, but having a bit of backing and new people discovering you slightly easier than just like purely just word of mouth and us, just driving up and down the country playing anywhere we could. We actually had a label putting it out and a support system around it. So to have then You Want to Know do well as a single, as a random sort of in between song, and take us to a whole another level on a touring perspective. I guess we probably should have known that would have brought its own pressures
mm,
from the record label, and I guess from ourselves as well, because you think, wow, what did we do to get this song? Like, how can we emulate that? And, that was just a song we wrote that we weren't really thinking too much about. It was just another evolution of our sound. Um, and yeah, then you start getting sort of, label people mentioning, sometimes subtly and not so, sometimes, yeah, not subtly
yeah,
at all. Yeah, write another You Want to Know, write an album of You Want to Knows, was one thing, we were asked to do, which kind of, yeah, always feels really weird and not good. Like,
mm,
and we still sometimes do, not you want to know, but sometimes we do go down a route of, oh, okay, let's try and write a song like this because this was fun or this did well. And it never yields results. Like, I think it just takes, for me anyway, it really takes the fun out of it. I mean, there's a song on, so we had this kind of You Want to Know chat from our record label at the time, who was Sony, who did the first two records, and even our last record label, Sharp Tone Records, as well, from the States, who they re-released Automatic in America like a few years later, and You Want to Know was like bundled up a part of that. And honestly, like, is the one thing we had constantly, like, even writing Amazing Things, it was like, because that was a song that a lot of people liked. It's kind of quite an easy listening rock song in a way. It kind of treads that middle ground, which is just, nothing we planned. It's just the way it turned out. It's like kind of heavy enough that people who like heavy rock music would like it, but it's probably pop enough that people who like pop music would like it.
Yeah.
So we've honestly, since that's been the song that keeps getting referenced by every record label now, and it is a great song. I love it. But yeah, while we were trying, when we actually tried to write a load of songs like that, like one of them ended up on Automatic, a song called "Let You Get Away," and if you listen to the choruses, they're kind of similar, kind of musically, not really vocally. But it kind of just feels like to us, it kind of feels like You Want to Know light. And I think because straight away to us, we knew, we were like, it's still a good song, but it doesn't feel like it's moving anything forward for us. It then doesn't kind of hold as much weight with us in the band. So, you don't care about it as much. So, yeah, I think it's something that's probably going to, it probably happens, every time you get a bit of luck and a certain song goes, a song does well or an album does well, people are going to want you to do more of that, whether that's coming from like the financial side, from a record label, or maybe even from fans, because they think, oh, I like this, I'm accustomed to this. But definitely for us, it's like, it sucks the fun out of being creative. So I think we probably, I'm sure we will end up writing songs that reference our older songs, because we do naturally do that. That's it's definitely a thing. It's like the easy route, and we've got like a whole back catalogue of songs and albums that sound like our previous records, but they just don't get our juices going because it feels like, well-trodden ground. I'm sure if we wrote like a banger, I like to think if we wrote an absolute banger that still sounded exactly like an old one, I'd like to think we'd have the common sense enough to be like, okay, well, this is just a tune. We're gonna, it's a good enough tune that we're stoked with it, that we're gonna put it out. But I think the bar has to be set for that sort of style song. It's now set so high within ourselves. It's got to be like a Purple Rain or something. It's got to be that good for us to be like, okay, it's worth doing a You Want to Know Mark II, if it's that good.
I think it's something that, as fans, I can't really relate to it. Like, I do even remember when I was in my band for a couple of years, where like we wrote, I'd say, about over 50 songs, and there were times where you were like, this sounds a bit like that one. And as you said, you can go two ways with it. You can just nearly say it's related to that song, and as you said, that nearly sucks some of the life out of the song. Or else you can just be like, this is it on its own. But it can sometimes be hard to differentiate or separate the two. But with your band, one thing I loved seeing, like, one of the reasons I wanted to see you live, and don't take this as an insult at all, I just wanted to be like, can they replicate the sound? Because you've got obviously you on vocals, you've got a bass player, guitar player, and a drummer who can also sing as well, which is obnoxiously hard, but credit to him. That's a different podcast in itself. But anyway, I was intrigued just with, one guitar, just basically one of each, it's like your sound can be so heavy, like so heavy, and that I mean that in a good way. But sometimes you see in the live setting where maybe if there's backing tracks, or I know Green Day had to get in a second guitarist to really actually create that volume. So like when you write, just to get us maybe a bit of an insight into the creative process of it, because now with Pro Tools and all the recording equipment you can have, you can make it sound like there's 20 people playing instruments, and you can layer 6 vocal tracks and have everything perfect, which most bands rightfully do. But do you think now, especially in music now, where like the live tour and the live show is, it's basically the breadwinner, like that's where most of the bands make their money now, do you cautiously like write music, or maybe not cautiously, but like when you write music, are you thinking this is going to sound really good live, and maybe more importantly we can absolutely like smash this live? Or do you not, you just think this is a good song, we'll deal with it on the live set if we need to?
Yeah, usually it's anything goes in the studio, within a few parameters. Like, um, you know, obviously all the drums are played for real, so Matt has to be able to play everything uh, drum wise. His issue is then how does he sing on top of that, which
Yeah,
yeah is would probably need its own podcast, because you know some some of the I mean it's we're not a massively complicated band. There are sections where they're a little more technical, but like overall, as we've sort of grown as a band as well, we've kind of realized that like for stuff to hit the hardest and to sound the best, you know, so often like the simplest thing is the best. We'll just lock in one groove, usually choose one or two grooves for a chorus or a song, and that is the motive. So it's nothing, overly technical. It's more then once like we've got it recorded, Matt has to figure out how to, separate his body from his brain and do that. So that can cause some
yeah,
issues for Matt. And he's also like a real perfectionist. So Matt always wants to play whatever he's recorded, because the reason he's chosen that fill, or we've written that part, is because we think it's sick. So you want to do that, but at the same time you can't always sing. The vocals are the most important thing, and a lot of the time when he's taking the lead, you can't do as complicated a fill over something. So we try and reassure him. We're like, honestly, you're at a show, you're feeling the vibe, people are rocking out in the pit. Just do what feels good. People aren't meticulously scanning most people aren't
mm,
meticulously scanning every note, every hit. Um, when it comes to Psy, he's like very, he's a really proud one guitar, guitarist, lead guitarist, who's a really proud one
yeah,
guitar.
I get that vibe.
He's so
I
we
get that
so
vibe.
while he'll like multi-track guitars in the sense of getting different tones in, and filling out the sound, he's very adamant. I think we've never done it on a song where if he can't play both parts at the same time, they don't go on. So you know a lot of his favorite guitarists, I think Incubus are probably one of his favorite bands, probably his favorite band of all time.
Yeah,
And Mike Einziger, the guitarist, was like, super famous, and Rage as well. I guess Tom Morello is a huge influence on Psy as well. Like, they're guitarists who don't need a rhythm guitarist to keep anything going. That is the part. So we've never done that. Those, I guess, that's probably the only rule we actually have when we record. Um, and yeah, and then everything else we kind of figure out. I mean, yeah, we love bringing when we can, our keyboard player, because he can play a lot of the synth, because you write all these synth parts and layers and things like that, and unless you're like literally carting around like 20 musicians to play other stuff, you know
yeah,
un, some of it's, if you want it to sound like the record, you have to have a few things on track. But there's a magic to having the lead parts, for example, played live on a keyboard. Having, if you've got any 3-part harmonies or extra vocals, we love having our keyboard player there to come in and sing those as well. We never would put lead vocals or backing vocals on track, because that kind of feels weird. We've kind of got a rule, like if it's weird enough and electronic enough that, people aren't going to notice, then we play with it. But yeah, we try not to put anything, obvious and leady on track, even though a lot of bands do. But I think it kind of ruins I think it takes you out of the moment there. When I see a band and they've got, their lead singer smashing it, even they're doing an incredible job, but you've got this other like perfect harmony, and you're looking around like, oh, no one's doing that. It diminishes the live talent of the people who are actually playing there and doing their thing. So we try and minimize that as much as possible. And yeah, I think almost sometimes like less is more as well. You just have like a couple of things going. You see some bands who don't play with any tracks. Some of the older bands, and you don't miss it, if you know what I mean. You see it because they didn't write with them as well. You see them live, and it just sounds, awesome. Almost the less you have, the bigger it sounds if you've got a good sound guy.
Yeah. Well, sound guys do have. There are some bad ones out there,
Yeah.
as I'm sure people who scan through YouTube will find out in a hurry. But no, that is interesting with regards to kind of simplifying it, and even the stuff on the backing tracks. I completely agree. I remember at that same festival, Mad Cool, Incubus were actually brilliant. I watched the tail end of their set, but I think it was for like 2 or 3 Pixie songs during like some of their bridges, they didn't sing the lyrics, and you could actually just faintly hear the actual kind of back and track lyrics being played. And I remember at that specific moment, I was like, oh, I'm divorced from the moment, because I'm like, why is that playing? So it's very fair comment, and I would agree with you on that. And with regards to I suppose, yeah, as you said, in the next week or so you are going on tour, but like the live show is what fascinates me about most bands, and kind of the longevity as well of bands that can do that. With yourself being a lead singer, again, like your voice, the register you have, it reminds me a bit of your man Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco, lead singer there, where you can go so high at times and so low. They're kind of like, whoa, real like powerful, weird low that only very few vocalists can get to. And you kind of have
I'd
that.
like to say I have the low. I don't think I have the high.
Well, like, yeah, his high
Crazy,
is like,
yeah,
it's on the moon. But as I what basically was saying is that like you do have a big enough canvas there to work, and it's not just kind of like a monotone pace that a lot of maybe punk rock or pop rock singers have. So with that diversity, do you find, like, as a lead singer, do you find that quite challenging to, like, especially on a tour where you might be gone for months and months, or maybe some of your festival appearances in front of 60,000+ people? Is that something that like you find quite pressurizing, the fact that, like, yes, we've got great musicianship around me, we can put on a good show, but like as a lead singer, if you're slightly off, like you only need to look at like a Guns N' Roses, a Glastonbury type thing, where everyone loves the band and loves the nostalgia, but there's obviously going to be a lot of people unhappy with the sound of the vocals, which in this case it's obviously due to age and wear and tear. But in your case, do you put like a big amount of kind of responsibility and pressure on your shoulders to be able to perform throughout even a whole tour, so that you don't let anyone down?
I mean, what I really should do is do more preparation before the festivals, I'll be honest. Because tour, yes, you lose your voice sometimes, and it's definitely taken me, a few years to really work out the limitations of my voice and how far I can push it and how relaxed I can be, in between shows. And you learn little tricks and, obvious things like, not shouting after a show, and not like, going out to loud clubs and things like that where you're like shouting over people. And those are things that usually damage it. Once you've got the show down, I'm normally pretty good on a tour unless you get ill, and then you've got a cold or flu, and that just ruins it. Like that happened our last European tour, and just one show, just nothing came out, and I was like, what can you do? You can't do anything about it. You practice, you get great, and the tour's going well, and then you catch the flu, and you can't help that. The thing, yeah, I guess the thing for me that I've learned is once I get going, especially like a week or two, my voice kind of levels out, and it doesn't really matter how long the tour is, as long as you're on top of your kind of care and your rest and you're sleeping a lot, I'm good. The festivals are the ones where I panic because a lot of the time they're just it's like a random summer festival when you're not on tour, or it's the start of a tour. A lot of the time, you'll do a festival maybe like a couple of days before a tour begins, especially like if you're flying out to another country, you'll kind of bundle in a festival before the tour goes, and that's a massive one for me because it usually takes me at least 3 or 4 kind of shows to get up to my sort of comfort level. So you'll go in sometimes completely dry to a festival, and it's never the same. Like, obviously practicing does help, like in the practice room, but it just, I don't know, there's just something about being on stage. Probably the adrenaline's going, you're pushing harder, you're going for stuff more, you're jumping around. It just, like, that's what really kind of stretches your vocal cords out to hit a point to be like decent show ready. So festivals, I get super nervous sometimes because I know I'm not at that point yet, and there's like a difficult, there's like that one high note in the song coming, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
another week and I'll be okay at this, but
Yeah.
maybe not now. So that's something I'd like to say I'm going to get better at, but the reality of it is you have to be like screaming your head off like for a week before, building up. It's a muscle, so you'd have to be building up, and you're at home, you're getting ready for a tour. You're not taking like, realistically, I'm not taking out like a couple of hours, of the day to go to a practice room by myself
Yeah.
to like be, screwing my head off. Like, I'd love to have that dedication, but I just don't at the minute. So that's the
Yeah.
danger. And, there have been 1 or 2 higher profile, festivals probably where you think, oh man, like, if this only could have been at the end of the tour, and it would have just been that extra level up for me personally. Because we've done some festivals where they've come at the end, and you just feel, honestly, you're like, the best feeling ever. Because when you haven't seen the boys for a while, you're not used to like that setup. We actually did it this before the US tour. The first show was a festival, and you're unpacking your gear. Your gear's just been flown over from the UK. You don't even know if it's all there. You're frantically unpacking it, trying to get ready.
Yeah.
It just takes a while to get into that rhythm. I remember the end of, it must have been not the last slam dunk we did, the slam dunk before. So it must have been a couple of years ago now. I think Shikari were headlining it, and we were maybe like main support. We just released our song Pretty and toured the States. It was our first tour of the States, actually. That was it. And we came back after like 6 weeks, like so tight, so ready. You've got everything dialed in. And I think the slam dunk that year worked out like a year, maybe like a week, sorry, after we came back. So it was like the perfect time to just get a little bit of rest, but you're still like tour tight, and it just felt so good. I think that's like the
Yeah.
best festival show we've ever, felt going into one where you're just, completely on your game. But you can't always plan for that. So
Fair. It sounds like Premier League managers talking about match sharpness, the
yeah,
players
yeah,
being 100% fit
yeah,
in the music terminology. And with say festivals now, you've done your fair share internationally now, and I'm sure you've been the tiny little writing at some stage down towards the bottom, and now your font's getting bigger and bigger as the years go by. With festivals, I always look at it and I'm like, I wonder if like there is much interaction between bands, or is it kind of like the first day of school where you kind of know of people, but you just kind of have your own stuff to do and own shows to do. Do you get the opportunities? I presume you obviously watch bands you love, but like, have there been an interaction with another band or a lead singer at some stage where you've nearly used it, like, I don't know, like a golfer on tour going up to Tiger Woods and asking him a question? Like, have you ever got an insight in the last like several years from festivals, or is it strictly I'm just going to have a beer, chill out, and watch, say, Incubus
Yeah, no, I
play their
mean,
last few songs?
yeah, you tend to sort of. It's always nice playing festivals where you've got a couple of mates on the bill, because then you end up tending to hang out together. It's a bit of a reunion. You have a few beers backstage. Um, but there is that excitement as well, definitely. I never try and punish my favorite bands too much, but there is that extra excitement when you're playing a festival with a load of, with a headliner you love, or a load of sort of other artists you're into. There always is that excitement, like who do you bump into backstage, you know, you go and say hi, and there's that nervousness of like that you don't really get anymore, where you're like,
Mm.
are they going to think I'm weird by coming up? That no one really ever does. But yeah, I think probably one of the funniest ones was like meeting Fred Durst for the first time. Um, and yeah, they were playing Reading. I think it was the same tent we were, maybe, or maybe we were a different stage. But I know we were in the same. We were both doing. I think it was either the Festival Republic stage or the Radio 110, and we were all camped out in the same sort of area. Um, and yeah, went to the toilet, and Fred Durst basically went to the urinal and like was having a wee, and then realised it was Fred Durst next to me having a piss at the same time, and having that like in a monologue, thinking, oh, like I don't really want to. I wouldn't really want someone talking to me while I'm having a piss. You're doing your thing, but I was like,
Yeah.
fuck, it's Fred Durst. I'm a huge Biscuit fan, so I had to just chat to him. So yeah, while we were having our wees, I was like, hey, Fred. um, yeah, I was just like, yeah, I'm a really big fan. Looking forward to the set. And I ended up. I don't think I even like told him I was in a band, but I was just like, this guy's a legend. I've just got to talk to him here. And he was like, cool, man. Not really like engaging. Just wanted to get on with his piss and get gone. And then later that day, I found my mum, and she like befriended their normal bassist couldn't make that shows. They had a touring bassist for their summer festivals. My mum had somehow befriended their bassist and was like hanging out with him the whole day.
As most
I was
moms
like,
end up
wow.
doing,
And yeah,
yeah.
he was like, yeah, your mum's really nice. She was just, it was one of the first festivals I think we'd remember the first few times we'd done Reading, and she was stoked to sort of be there and be backstage. Um, so that was kind of funny. And then yeah, a few other times. Normally, I just sort of, if there's someone I love, then I'll go over and say hi, because I feel you've got to like engage with those sort of exciting moments where you feel like a kid again, and you're like, wowed by, I wouldn't say it's like, the I guess the veil of like the glamour and the excitement of being backstage is probably gone, because you realize how disorganized and like kind of bad it is most of the time. But yeah, there's still a magic of like meeting, your favorite artists who you've been jamming their songs to since you were a kid. So, and you always regret it if you don't. Like I remember being behind
Yeah.
the drummer from System of a Down, a European festival, and we were just waiting for our catering, like with our trays. So I was like behind him for ages in the queue, and for some reason I didn't say hi, and like the whole rest, I'm still regretting it now. I'm like, what is it? I'm still thinking about
And here
it.
you are
Like,
now, still regretting
I
it.
love
Yeah.
System of a Down. They're probably my favorite band, and why didn't I just say hi? love your music. Like that's all I needed to do. And I wouldn't be living in this regret. I'm now bringing up on a podcast.
Eating away at you. Yeah. And yeah, well, one of the last things I want to chat about with you, Rob, is it's kind of the the changes in music, and you've kind of come at it at an interesting time where it was the CD era. It was, as you said, releasing singles that if you've a good video on MTV2 or Kerrang, that's
Mm.
or I think it was
Scars, yeah,
Scuzz
yeah.
was the heavier one. Yeah, yeah, Scuzz. That like was your window into fans' kind of eyes and ears. And now, as you said, streaming is a big thing. There's been a lot of stuff written online about like if actors are getting all these strikes with the writers for equal pay, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't see a clip of like, oh, this should be better, or streaming's doing X and Y. In your eyes, like, because you've now seen, I'm sure, the grind and sticking in a van, sleeping with someone's toes in your face, and like there's great stuff to that. But then now you've probably worked your way up to where you have your own dressing rooms, you might even have your own catering, you might have your own plan A to B, whatever it may be. And as I said, the bigger fonts when it comes to the festivals. But do you think music, as you've grown up and gradually gotten more successful within it, do you think it's in a good place, or do you still feel that maybe the album side of things or the label or even the streaming side of things needs to be worked on? Or is it just a case of this is it, got to make the most of it and
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
I
accept
definitely
it and
think
go on?
there's a lot of room for improvement. I think the great thing about streaming and the internet in general, but streaming has helped that too, is it gives artists a chance to, it gives you that kind of punt where you might not have that support yet, but by having your music in a really easy way for people to discover it and hear it and get a bit of luck on a playlist or something like that, that's I think it is a positive, because the the chance to sort of make it, not even big time, but to turn your hobby or turn your passion into something you could actually do as a job and get paid for, that was so much harder, you know 30 years ago. And obviously the internet enabled that through social media, and streaming I think obviously helped with that too. um, but yeah, I do think, I mean, the crazy thing that I just think's mad for record labels don't do is just uh, is like accounting. I think it's crazy that um, bands and artists are like very rarely can see their own accounts within record labels. So you might get so many streams and so much, and there's ways of sort of working it out, but that's something that I find kind of quite strange. You can a label can spend whatever they will claim to spend whatever they've spent on marketing, but you don't actually get, unless they want to show you a rundown of it and be really nice. There's no
Mm.
transparency within that. So a lot of labels kind of can plead poverty, um, where actually they're doing pretty well and they're making a lot of money out of their artists, and the artists don't get really paid that much. Which is why it's super exciting when you see artists that aren't with a record label do well, because you know
Yeah.
the ones that actually succeed, they're actually like, they're banking some serious money, because there is money to be made through music, through streaming, even if you're not touring. So that's something that I'd like to like see shift, because there still definitely is a place for the record label structure. Do you know what I mean? It's nice to
Yeah.
know that there's professionals that you trust that can work and support and collaborate with artists. And I'm sure there's a lot of great ones out there, but I still feel there's this shadiness amongst it, where there's definitely like an old school mentality where it's almost like the labels versus the artists, in the same way that I think,
Yeah.
the writers' strike felt that way. It's like you've got the big corporations who are funding it all, and they're not cutting in the creatives fairly. So I think that's something I'd probably like to see change. And obviously, like, it's the artists and the musicians and the songwriters who are most of the time putting in that hard graft that need to see some sort of return, or it's, because you can't just live off the great feeling of I'm a musician. You do need to get paid. At the end of the day. So that's something I think could change, and I think I'd love to see the culture change in regards to maybe albums a bit more, and just general release strategies. Like, I saw like it's just an interesting snippet on Instagram popped up the other day of I can't remember if it was Nardwuar interviewing Tyler the Creator, but he was just saying he's just bored of sorry, my phone's running out of battery there. He's just bored of seeing artists. Artists will spend
Okay.
months, years, writing, creating the visuals, perfecting an album, spending those countless hours mixing it, putting all this love into creating this art, and then they're expected to, like, I think his examples were like go on hot ones, like eat a load of chicken wings or go sneaker shopping, and suddenly they have to sell themselves as a personality, or as as like I guess what can we pick to make them do that make them seem interesting, and just keep people engaged when they've only got an attention span of a couple of seconds, while they've spent all this time like investing in something sort of super important to them. There should be some way of getting that out, and hopefully people still finding that interesting. And I don't know what the answer to that is, because maybe people don't have the attention span these days to sort of, for someone they haven't discovered or haven't, gotten into yet, hearing that. But like, I'll be honest, if I see a random like musician that I haven't heard yet before, and they're doing, I don't know, a game show, or they're like, doing a life in the day, and it's them showing what they're having for tea, it's like, I don't find that interesting either. So I think there needs to be there must be a better way of like cutting through the noise of social media and bringing it back to great music and great art, and not kind of distilling it with, personality is important. And I think people do need, a lot of, people's favorite artists and singers, they are fun to watch, and they do, they might have a sense of humor in it, and it's nice peppering that in. But I think that needs to be stuff around the side, and it needs to be more about the music and about the art. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is to get that, because you're competing with algorithms and who knows what, and just so much content out there. So, but you've also got, on the flip side, you've got what we're doing right now. You do have people who are prepared to, say, listen to a podcast, or people who do still love watching like 3-hour movies and actually getting into it and investing themselves in, and giving themselves that time to sort of go a little bit deeper. So that is there. It would just be nice if there was maybe a few more outlets for that, I think.
Yeah. No, well said. As long as I don't see Rob on
I mean,
Hot Ones in 6
if I
months,
was
I think
invited to that, I
we're
definitely
on the
would do
right
it.
path.
So I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Be a good episode. But so just last thing from me, Rob, before I let you go. With regards to the band now, Don Broco, you are at a stage now where, as I said, like you can sell out reasonably sized venues in your hometown, and you've just done the US tour, and I'm sure once you do this UK cycle and go on to the festivals, you'll be probably thinking next album or something along those lines. And even stuff, I know you've got the release of the Royal Albert Hall coming out, which, by the way, I absolutely adore that. Like Nerve was a song I wasn't really into, and then once I heard
Ah,
that
so
at Royal
yeah, yeah,
Albert Hall, I was like, "That's a banger." And
nice.
it's on my iPhone. Put it that way. But do you like have any aspirations? Are you like a goal setting band, or are you very much just four guys enjoying the ride and
Yeah, I
seeing where it
think,
takes you?
we've got loose aspirations. I think that the loose aspiration is, we want to keep growing as a band, keep playing bigger venues, bigger shows, going to more countries. That as a general thing, you want to keep moving in the right direction. Um, and to be fair, it's not like I know enough about all the venues all over the world that I could say, wouldn't that be great? You've got obvious things like, being from near London, you've obviously got these different venues to play. And, one day, wouldn't it be amazing to play the O2, to headline that? That would be insane. And I guess, like, you see every band who gets massive in America, they play Madison Square Garden. Again, that would be cool. But I don't think we're like,
Yeah,
it's not the most important thing, to us. It's like, as long as you're moving in the right direction, you're continuing to grow, but you're putting out music, continue to put out music that you love and you care about and you think's good. That's the most important thing for us. It's like, it comes down to the music. That's where all the satisfaction comes from for us is, writing an album or a body of work that we think's cool and people responding to that in a live setting. That is completely what it's about for us. And, we've been doing it long enough now that I know that's where I get my kicks. And, hearing, the impact that, our songs have on people at those shows, and people having such a good time at those shows, that gives me that satisfaction that, I am also, you feel great, you're giving something back as well. It's one of those, for me, it's, one of the best jobs in the world. You're self-satisfied because you're doing something that you love and you're making other people happy, which makes you feel good about yourself as well. So as long as I can keep doing that,
yeah,
and people want to, keep wanting to listen to our band and see our band, I think we'll be pretty happy with that. But, you know, there's definitely, like, that excitement of, you do move up festival bills and you see yourself, growing in that perspective. And, one day headlining a festival like Reading and Leeds, something we've been going to, for years as punters, and now, playing all these different stages, working our way up the festival bill. Obviously one day that would be really cool too. But I think we learned
yeah,
from our last album. It was the first record we got. We had a number one album with in the UK, and while that was great for a couple of weeks, that buzz quickly dies off, and you realize, it's nice, but it's not the most important thing. It's the music and the shows for us.
yeah. Well said. Well, how I finish my podcast is I just do a few quick fire questions and then I send you on your way. But thanks, obviously, for answering so honestly, and I think we've covered quite a lot. But yeah, first things that come to your head, just answer. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Well, it's only in your perspective if they're right or wrong. So, to start off, what is your favorite
Um,
film of all time?
I think it's too hard to say of all time, but I think uh, definitely a new film that's made it into there is, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Um, I was thinking about it yesterday. Honestly, I was just randomly thinking about it. Like, it's quite rare for, like, a new film to make it into your collection of just, favorites over how many films you've seen. But I think that is a
Yeah,
film that really sums up, like, a lot of the creative ideas that I try and bring to Don Broco and we do as a band. I don't know if there's many other films that capture what our band is about as much. You know, it's like just insanely creative, just like, you know, it's just super fun. It's got incredible comedic elements. The visuals are just crazy. It's got an incredibly emotional, you know, story about family and love and relationships. It's also touches on like deep philosophical ideas, and it's all wrapped up in this, you know, sick martial arts movie that's just like insane from start to end. So, like, that movie is definitely, you know, like, it's definitely got to be up there. If it's not number one, it's close. So yeah, I think that film is really good. Crazy, yeah.
It's a good choice. It's a crazy film, but it's, as you said, it's absolutely enjoyable. What is your favorite bridge or interlude or whatever musical term you want to use, and that you've written with
Ooh,
Don Broco?
good question. That's a really good one. I wouldn't know. Yeah, I'm trying to
Yeah,
think.
you're like scanning through every song ever written now.
I might have to pass on that. I think. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
so it's probably not my
We
favorite,
can move on. Maybe in a few days it might come to you and you can.
but one I really like that I think just because it's different from the others is we were talking about You Want to Know earlier. We did uh, a kind of remix of that song. Um, we kind of sometimes rework some of our older songs and put them out under, call it the club sex mix version of a song. Um, and we did that for You Want to Know, and it's kind of just the same middle eight, but just sung slightly differently, and there's a different musical arrangement. Just really simple, but really good. And again, I'd forgotten about that. I can't remember. It might have come up in a
Okay.
playlist or something, or someone was talking about it a couple of weeks ago on tour, and I was like, wow, I haven't listened to that version of that song for ages. I was playing, and then we were talking about it. I played it. Someone was like, this is a jam. Um, and there's something just really simple about that bridge that's I thought was like really cool. But yeah.
Okay. What is the worst bit of advice you've received in your
Hmm.
line of work?
Well, I mean, we definitely were told to pack it in. um, Before we even got going. Um, like a guy who works in the music industry who was, I guess you could call him like a family friend, who we were maybe hoping for a bit of advice from. His advice was, I don't think this is going to work
Mm,
out. His words were, and this was like he was my like contact. He, you know, so this wasn't like, you know, this was a
yeah.
text from him, like not mincing his words. He said, "Your voice is too ugly for radio. Um, I don't think it's going to work out." Um, and to be fair to him, I wouldn't say we've had loads of radio, so maybe he was right. But it wasn't. Your voice is too ugly for radio. I'd
Yeah.
focus on, you know, the internet. I'd focus on really building your SoundCloud numbers or something like that. You know, or really focus. You know, it was just kind of nah, it's not going to work out. So that was a real horrible bit of advice because I was looking for advice and just got a brutal diss. Uh, but luckily, we ignored him. We ignored him
Yeah.
and carried
That's
on. And
tough to take.
yeah, kind of. It was not. It was nice to see him a few years later and being like, ah, yeah,
The-
we're still a band.
yeah, we're still going. And second last one, so this is quite a controversial one, not like actually controversial, but a lot of people struggle with the answer. So, what is worse, in your opinion, hoovering the house, changing the bed sheets, or doing the dishes?
I do hate changing the bed sheets, but I'd say hoovering. I'd say hoovering.
I think most,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
most males pick bed sheets,
Thing is,
and
I
then the
like a
hoovering
Hoover.
aspect
I
is
actually
just
enjoy a
I always
Hoover, but
get
I'm
so
I'm too
sweaty
thorough.
doing it, and it
Like
angers
if
me.
I'm hoovering, I'm going to town. Like I leave no stone under. I can't do it like a quick whip around.
Mm,
Like I'm like picking up, I'm moving the furniture, I'm
yeah,
going in. So it takes me ages. Um, so yeah, it's such an endeavor. I'd have to go bed sheets. Bed sheets I do hate. Yeah. Um, yeah, but I can enjoy a Hoover actually, but I never enjoy doing the bed sheets. So yeah, I'm gonna go bed sheets too. I hate doing the bed sheets. Just so fiddly. You're reaching around, you can never get it flat. No, it's never right. Um,
yeah. It's never right.
no,
It's
like
never right.
yeah, my missus is
No.
never happy with my job as
Um,
well. I'll do my thing, and she's like, I've just got to redo it myself. So it's like you could have done it. Why don't you do it then? Then leave it to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just purposely do a terrible job so you just know it's going to be done better. And last question is, what question, if you could ask yourself one question that I haven't asked you
Got
yet,
no
what would it
idea.
be?
If I could ask myself
Yeah,
any
it can be
question,
absolutely anything,
or a
by the way.
question I'd have want you to ask, yeah, you to ask me.
Yeah, that I
Yeah.
haven't asked yet, but like it might not have to come from me. Could be one person asked what's for
um,
dinner.
yeah, I'd probably ask, yeah, something. I mean, currently this is my dinner right now, so I haven't got anything. My mum left me out some crunchy nut cornflakes, so yeah, yeah, I
The
probably
glamour,
want to
the
know,
glamour.
yeah, I don't know, what's a good one? Favorite pizza toppings, because that's you get a lot of heat on that if you get that wrong. People are well,
And what is
okay.
your pizza
Again, I
toppings
wouldn't say
then?
this
I
is
obviously
my
have to ask it
favorite,
now.
but I am partial to yeah, a bit of pineapple and ham. So I don't mind the Hawaiian, but when people find out that I'm half Italian as well, they're like, "You are a disgrace. How can how can you be eating ham?"
That
But
is
it
just.
just works. Or to be fair, pineapple it can be pineapple and pepperoni.
Oh,
That's good too.
yeah.
I just think the juiciness, the
Okay.
moisture it brings, and that sort of little dash of sweet, you just can't go wrong. So, yeah,
No, it is a good combination. I was recently in Bari in Italy, and I asked, would I like be asked to leave the restaurant if I asked
yeah.
for pineapple? And your man in his broken English was just like, yes. So I was like, okay, understood. But yeah, no, Rob, that wraps it up. I do appreciate your time. I know we've chatted for quite a while here, but hopefully the listeners get something out of it. And I know you've got a busy few weeks ahead. Hopefully the Christmas kind of come down as relaxing, even though it tends to be heavy, especially for Irish and British people. It tends to always be the case. But I wish you all the best going forward as well. Hopefully I'll get to see you. I know there's a few of my friends in the UK who will be definitely going to your gigs in the next like 2 3 weeks, I think it is. But hopefully maybe on the festival tour I can get to see you
Yeah,
probably put too much sun cream on your face
I
again and
never
complain
learn. I
after two
never
songs
learn when it
that
comes to festivals and putting
you've
on the cream.
over.
It's just you just got to avoid the
No,
forehead. You got to do everything under the eyes because it's just I'm just trying the whole set.
yeah, it's tough, but yeah, and then also anyone who listens, by the way, all the socials and information will be below. So if you want to follow Rob or the band or see their latest news, I'll attach all that. So feel free to
Awesome.
check them
Thanks,
out
man.
and yeah, enjoy the
For
music.
chatting.
Thanks, Rob.